Hey guys, it's me again with another video, this time about my life in Ayacucho, Peru, where I lived for 6 months and did my internship, and all the crazy, juicy stories attached to it. From the night that I spent backstage, invited by an international artist, to having a wounded fugitive in my kitchen. You may have already seen my latest video that is a travel guide about Ayacucho. I really loved making that video. It's in Spanish, but it does have English subtitles. So check it out if you want to see what the region is like and just how beautiful the city is. Now, the first crazy thing that happened to me happened as soon as I left the airport. I got a cab with a girl that also had to go to a hostel in the same area of the city. Now bear in mind the capital of Peru, Lima, has 11 million inhabitants. That's as many inhabitants as Belgium has in total. So it's a really huge city and the traffic can get pretty crazy. So we got in this cab and pretty soon we noticed that the cab driver was driving quite crazily. It's not like we felt super unsafe because in these kind of countries you kind of know that when the traffic is crazy, the drivers are used to it. That was until we hit another car, and it was another cab. The cab drivers got out of their cars, looked at the damage, started screaming at each other, started going at each other physically, and then got back into their car and drove away, like just to drop the people off that were in the car. So me and this girl were pretty shocked. Like, we looked at each other like, what the hell is happening? We weren't even in the country for an hour and we already saw a fight happen. So safe to say it wasn't the best first impression. But I made it safely to Ayacucho, the city that I was going to spend the next 6 months. I'm not going to go into big detail about the internship because it really wasn't that interesting. So I arrived at the airport of Ayacucho, and someone of my host family and of the company I would work for were waiting for me with flowers to welcome me, and it was so nice. I had lived with other host families around the world, so it probably won't be any more basic than that, right? Right? Well, I went back to before basics there. Now, a lot of things I could get used to, like opening my bedroom door with a cord that I would have to pull so that it opened on the inside. The cord broke several times, then my host brother had to climb out of the balcony onto my windowsill, open the window, and basically open the door from inside. There was a hole in the door to the toilet, so I always took my towel to cover up the hole so that no one would see me sit on the toilet. I didn't really have curtains, so I would hide behind something so that no one of the neighbors could see me change. I had an unlimited data plan on my cell phone, so even though there was no Wi-Fi, I could make a hotspot. At first, they didn't have a hot shower. It was a cold shower or a bucket. So obviously I preferred the bucket. You get a cup and you kind of get used to it, like you create some kind of ritual with it, some kind of technique. So I didn't really mind it that much. I mean, I had hot water, I could wash myself. But I could only do it in the mornings because that's the only time there was water. And occasionally there just wouldn't be any water. And on that day, they took the tea off the stove, mixed it in with some cold rainwater, and I basically washed myself with the tea. The host family was located half an hour from the city center. I would take these small buses that are called rutas. It's an adventure on its own, let me tell you. That meant that I didn't really have any time in the evening that I could spend with my friends. It wasn't safe to go out. So aside from a really sucky internship, I then also didn't have anything to really keep me busy and to enjoy after the internship. There are certain things that I just couldn't get used to. Two very important things for me are food and just health in general, and sleep. And when I'm having trouble with both of those, it is really going to take a toll on me. Food was included with the host family, and it was 2 meals a day because I lunched at the office. I just basically spent a month and a half being sick of the food. I decided to buy bread and peanut butter to have in the mornings instead of boiled potatoes and boiled eggs. And then in the evening I would eat with the family, and one time I even got a soup that had the chicken claws in it. Now when it came to sleep, the whole house woke up at around 4 to 5 a.m. That is 2 to 3 hours earlier than I had to get up. Also, the roosters and the chickens that were on top of the building made so much noise as soon as they woke up. That meant that not only was I being sick for a month and a half, I also was losing lots of sleep. Although I loved the family so much, I decided to tell them that I was going to move out, which was the hardest conversation I've had to have in my whole entire life. It was heartbreaking. They really put so much effort into making me feel home, and they even installed a hot shower eventually. I'm used to living outside my comfort zone. In fact, I prefer it. But this was like way out of it, you know, and I just couldn't get used to it. So I had to leave there and I decided to get my own apartment. And that is when things got good. I would still go and visit the family once a month and give them some kind of financial help. I also still spent a lot of time with the family, going to a baptism and just seeing my host sister, who I loved a lot. They had 2 nests of puppies, and of course I had to go see them. Yeah, I would like to think that my relationship with the host family is still really good, even though I had to leave there. So I moved into my new apartment with a balcony with an amazing view, everything I needed, and it was only a 10-minute walk towards the city center. This big main square was always taken over by the military, especially on Sunday morning when they would put up the Peruvian flag. There was always some kind of parade going on. Around Christmas time it was decorated like incredibly. Like, it was so ridiculous, it was good, you know? There was just always something going on the main square. I decided to join the gym with some of my friends. I was able to go out, and I even gave English lessons to some kids. I went into a nail salon asking if they did any manicures because they are usually pretty cheap there. And the lady that was the boss immediately came running up to me because she saw that I was a gringa, and she asked me if I could teach her kids some English, which I ended up doing. I did it with lots of YouTube videos, etc. And yeah, it was a fun way to gain a bit of money. And if you want to travel South America, I think that if you know English and you can give English classes, that it's a nice way to gain some extra money on the road. It's pretty easy to find people who want it. Another big culture shock is when you are going out, for example, to a birthday or to the club, they have a very different way of drinking beer. They basically buy one big bottle of beer and you get 1 glass with it, and it is to share with 4 people. So you will put like this much of beer inside the glass, and then you will drink it, and the last bit you will throw on the ground or into a bucket, and then you will pass on the glass and the beer bottle. Now, I don't think they will keep this custom because, I mean, if someone's sick, especially these days, it's easy to just spread it around like that. I always found it really, yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. Now let's talk about food. So I told you about the chicken claw. Well, in Peru, the meals are full of carbohydrates. It is always served with rice and potatoes because the potato is like the pride and joy of Peru. They have thousands of different kinds of potato, and it's just seen as a vegetable for them. The national dish of Ayacucho is rice with potatoes in some kind of red peanut sauce and pasta. Like, that's the dish. Then they also think that a roasted chicken is a national dish. Like, it's something typically Peruvian, whilst they sell it on every single market here in Belgium. They also have these amazing breads that's kind of like a pita bread. It's hollow inside and it's super crispy, really nice. On the weekends, we would go out to the one club that there was in the city. We always had lots of fun dancing to the reggaeton. Every now and then there would be artists that would come and perform there. On this one night, Don Chisina was playing there. This is an international artist with Puerto Rican roots. I was just having fun with my friends. dancing the night away when we were invited backstage with them. We had lots of fun that night, but no crazy things happened. On the weekends, we would also go and see a football game. The army would take up one block of seats, and they were pretty much the cheerleaders. During halftime, they would get up, they would sing, they would dance. They were the cheerleaders, and they were right beside us. We also got to spend a lot of time with the host family of one of the other students. They would make us traditional food, we would make them our traditional food, and it was an amazing intercultural exchange. In Peru, and especially Ayacucho, Carnival and the Holy Week before Easter, which is called Semana Santa, are celebrated like crazy. Carnival is pretty much a month-long celebration, and you can bet that we took part in it, and we went all out. So the first thing that we did for the celebrations of Carnival was take part in a contest. We did not know what we signed up for. We arrived there and it was a big stadium full of people. I'm talking hundreds of people. Before even going in, we were guided towards a ruta, which is the kind of minibus, and we had to put on traditional Peruvian clothes. We looked ridiculous. Now it's safe to say that as soon as we came through the gates, all eyes were on us. Who were those gringos? Dressed in Peruvian clothes, and what were they going to do here? We were shocked at how many people there were. And we didn't even know what we were going to do. We had no preparation. We ended up just kind of dancing, running around. We ran around the whole field in front of all the people a couple of times in like a row. It was a crazy experience. We didn't win. We didn't. But it was a fun experience. Another thing that they do in the month leading up to Carnival is Yunzas. And what is a Yunza? Well, it's just a big celebration. There's food, there's drinks, there's music, there's even this crazy guy on a horse. And there is a huge tree in the middle of the field. And people take turns dancing around the tree with an axe and cutting into the tree. And the person who eventually is the one to cut the tree down when it falls, that is the person that has to arrange the party the next year. So he's in charge of all the costs, so you don't really want to cut it down, so why would you even try? And when this tree goes down, all the presents that are up in the tree are free for grabs. So instead of people running away from a falling tree, you will see them running towards it to grab whatever they can. It's like a giant piñata. It's lots of fun to experience it. There's always multiple ones going on. So do see if you can crash one when you're there. And then eventually it's time for Carnival. And that is a week of groups of people going through the streets, dressed in all traditional clothes, singing songs with lyrics that they made up and that are often really funny. We had the luck that we were able to take part in this. It started at 2 p.m. that we would gather in the streets, each group behind the other. We stood there for so long practicing our dance and the song and drinking. And eventually it was 8 p.m. when we arrived at the main square, having gone through all the streets of Ayacucho. There's lots and lots of people in the streets to watch all the groups go by, and it was really an amazing experience, but definitely tiring. And that wasn't the end of the day. Then there was another party after this. Now bear in mind that most people are already just gone after spending a whole day drinking. And then they have another barbecue and another party. We even ended up in the club again at the end of the night. And we met some guys there from Lima. One of them had a sister that was a makeup artist for the girls that participate in the Carnival parade. And we really got along, and eventually they drove one of my friends to my apartment so that she didn't have to walk alone. And then my other friend, my male friend, and I would go back not that long after. At the moment that we got into bed and we turned off the lights, my landlord started knocking on the door. And he was like, Sarah, are you awake? So I opened the door and he told me that someone was outside, downstairs, at the front door, knocking at it for like an hour already. And he was named something, a very common Peruvian name. And I was like, who? He says, yeah, he's covered in blood and he's asking for you. So me and my friends are like, there's someone covered in blood at your door. We're coming with you to see what's happening. And we got there, and this guy was there. I didn't know him. We had mutual friends, etc. And he had on this white shirt. Oh yeah, and he had been at the party earlier. He had on this white shirt, and it was covered in blood. Like there was barely any white left. And it was pretty easy to see that it was coming from his head. We asked him what happened, and he couldn't really give us a good answer. He was like, I don't know. I lost my phone. Very strange. And then we just took him up to see like in what kind of condition he was. And luckily my male friend, he wasn't too squeamish, so he cleaned out the whole wound in my kitchen. Me and my girlfriend, we were just standing there looking. We couldn't look at the wound. We were just so confused. And eventually he told us, like, I've been robbed. They wanted to take my cell phone, but I fought back, but they fought back even harder. And it was here in the neighborhood, and I know you lived here, so you were the first thought that came up to just come here. Now we cleaned out the wound. It was obvious that it didn't need any stitching. It wasn't that deep. So I told him, here, take your shirt. It's already covered in blood, and wrap it around your head really tight so it stops the bleeding. I put a towel on my couch and I let him sleep it off. We saw him leave early in the morning when we weren't up yet. So I thought, okay, like it's all good. He'll probably have it checked out, whatever. So the next day I was asked by this makeup artist to be her model. The two guys who dropped my girl off at the apartment, they were there as well. And I decided to go for some pizza with them afterwards. And they started telling me this story about a guy that they saw after they had dropped off my friend at my apartment, and he was like kind of strange. I guess they drove by him with the window down, and this guy offered them drugs. Now, these two guys from Lima, they had a pretty nice car, and they decided it would be funny if they acted like they were undercover cops. And this guy offering them drugs started running away. And he ended up walking into something, or like walking into a porch and hitting his head or whatever. You see where this is going? So we assume that the guy that they saw that was running away, hit his head, was a drug dealer. That is the guy that eventually ended up in my kitchen with a head wound. What do you guys think? Because the two stories align so well. The timing, just everything, the whole story just fits. Do you guys think it was that guy? Did I have a fugitive in my kitchen? Okay, and then last but definitely not least, the place to be for Semana Santa, the Holy Week before Easter, is Ayacucho. There's only one place in the world, and that's Sevilla in Spain, where Semana Santa is celebrated even more than in Ayacucho. People from all over Latin America come to Ayacucho to spend this week there and see all the celebrations. There's lots of parades going on, there's a big festival. I worked as a promoter for one of the festivals that was going on, which was lots of fun. I made so many of my really good friends in the last week I spent in Peru. On Easter Sunday, they have this huge thing that hundreds of men carry out of the cathedral, and they walk it around the main square, and then they have to get it back into the cathedral. And it's a privilege to be carrying it. But it starts right before the sun goes up, which was about 4 a.m. And it ended at around 7:30 maybe. So it took them about 3 hours to carry them all around the main square. Just like Dia de Muertos in Mexico, it's basically a religious tradition that brings together so many thousands of people who believe in the same thing. And that to me has something really meaningful. Like, you can see a beautiful landscape and you'll think it's beautiful, but it'll be just as beautiful in a picture, maybe even more beautiful. But there's something about culture and traditions and really experiencing them that just takes a trip to another level. So I would really recommend you to go to Ayacucho, check out my travel guide, and go there during Carnival or Holy Week. I swear it's so worth it. That's it, guys. That is how I spent 6 months in Ayacucho, Peru, how I lived there, all the crazy stories. Keep an eye out for my next video as well. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it. Maybe also like this video and leave a comment. The next video will be about Mexico and my time in Cancun and how I escaped kidnapping and all the other dangers that you have to look out for when you go there. Okay, guys, that's it. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!